The only thing you'll have to do is navigate to github.com/tcsai like this. So this brings you to the department's GitHub page. It lists all the courses that we have, and the current one is obviously data mining. So we're going to click on that. Now this brings up this screen. You can sort of look through all the files here, but we're more interested in the URL up here. So we're going to copy that for now. And the next thing that we do is we navigate to HTTPS and then Jupyter like this, .uvt.nl like this. Now this will bring you to the login page. You can just log in with your own info here. And the thing you would want to do is click either Start My Server or My Server. This will bring you to a similar screen like this. This will not be your exact view. Obviously, I have a bunch of extra directories. Now the first thing you want to do is to open a new notebook and click Python 3 like this. And let me first take a second to explain what you're seeing right here. So Jupyter is a sort of virtual server that can run code for you. Now conveniently it can sort of run code on a server that is not yours. So we can actually write a bunch of scripts and then we can just run them from the browser. So it runs Python, which is good for us. If you want to test it, you can just type print and then hello world, for example, and that should sort of display this message hello world underneath here. And there we go. What Jupyter also allows us to do is send direct commands to the server. Now this is not very important, except for the fact that we have to sort of interact with our repository, our GitHub repository here, in here. So we have to sort of pull it to the server. Now conveniently we can say git and then clone like this. And you paste the URL that we had before. So it's github.com/tcsai/data mining. And if you do Control Enter, it will bring up this. So it says it's cloning and it's done. And it should have sort of synced this GitHub repository to the server. If you want, you can rename this to git clone, but we're not really going to use this when you have the repository. So you can go to File and Save and Checkpoint and then Close and Halt. And this will bring you to this view right here. Now we can get rid of this one because as you can see, data mining is now here on the server. So you can click this one and you can bin it. Okay, let's go into data mining. Now what you will see here is that we have a bit of data and we have a README. If we open up the README, you can see that it gives you a sort of plain text view of the README. But we'll deal with the data for now, so we can close this like here. And we're back to this view. So here we can say new, then again bring up a Python 3 notebook. And there we go. Now, in the future, if you actually want to sync this repository, the only thing you'll have to do is type git pull like this. And we can save this file as git pull and like this. And every time I update this repository, so there's changes here, you can run this one line and it will sort of bring in the new changes. So as you can see, we're up to date. Don't forget to do this after there's been made any changes, so you're sure that this repository on the server is actually synced. So now we can go ahead and File, Save and Checkpoint, File, Close and Halt. Now we're going into more detail on how to use these different packages further in the course, but I'd like to give you a small introduction on all of them. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll create a new notebook and we are going to call it pandas like this. Now if you search for Python pandas, you can see that it is a data analysis library. It focuses on opening and dealing with data. It has a book that sort of deals with how to use it within Python, but I think it's a bit too specific for how we're going to use it in this course. Now, given that pandas is a Python package, we can use it within this sort of Jupyter shell that we have. We can see that we are using Python 3 here, so we are actually able to work with this pandas package. And how we do that is that we just say import pandas. Now pandas is a bit long to write all the time, so we can sort of alias it, as that's called. You can say as, and then whatever you write after as, it will be called afterwards. So if you type PD, every time you call pandas, it will just be shorted to PD. So if you again press Control Enter, it will run this cell, and because it gives no errors, we're good to go. Now, as you can see here, we already have a bit of data. We have the housing data set that we're going to work with in the next lectures. And you can see here that there's housing.csv. It's a small file. If we open it, you can sort of see that there's a bunch of numbers. We don't really need to consider ourselves with this. The only thing that I want you to try is to see if it actually works. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another code cell below here by pressing insert and then insert cell below. So the line you're going to type is PD dot, and then you can actually autocomplete if you press tab like this. And the thing that we're interested in is the data frame. So the autocomplete doesn't work for me, only if I go there with the keys and then click enter like this. Now a data frame is a sort of container that contains data that we load from somewhere. So these are also in R, same as in pandas, are always referred to as data frames. Now data frames will have to load from a specific type of file. Now we know that it's a .csv file. I'm going to explain about this in the next lecture, but what we want to do for now is to load it from a CSV. So we can again press tab after we wrote FR to autocomplete from CSV. This is going to call a file and then store it in this data frame, but obviously we need to refer to which directory this data is actually in. So we can do that by typing these quotes, which say that everything after here is going to be a string. And the string will refer to data and then housing like this. You can again press capital H then tab to autocomplete, and then again tab will give you housing.csv like this. You don't necessarily need to understand what all these parts are, so what strings are and what the actual functions specifically do and these kind of things. Just if you can sort of copy how this works right here, and if you kind of understand what the output does, that's enough for this course. Now if we press Control Enter, it will load up the following. Now this is our data set. There's a bunch of problems with it. So for example, if you look here, there's crim. I don't know what crim is, I don't know what z is, I don't know what index is, I don't know what cas is. All these are apparently headers, so they're supposed to be attributes or features, but I don't know what they stand for yet. Another problem is that if you can see here, the attribute is lower, which means that this is actually an indexing feature or attribute. Now what it implies is that this value here uniquely refers to this instance. Preferably we would want to have this 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., right? Not the actual feature values, because we need them as actually being a feature. So how we can fix this is that we place after loading the file, we say in and then press tab and say index col like this, which stands for index column, and then we say equals none, which says there is no index column, so make one for me please. And there we go, it's fixed. So now we can see it started with 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And this is the rest of our data. So now that we've discussed Jupyter, which is basically running small snippets of Python in a web shell, and you saw very basic usage of pandas, The only thing I still need to introduce is scikit-learn. Now, as you can see here, scikit-learn is a machine learning library in Python. What it does is basically everything you would want from a machine learning / data mining library. Before we used Weka and we tried Orange, and they're just not as feature-rich, stable, or developed as scikit-learn. So, despite the fact that Python can be sort of a hurdle to interact with this, it is very important that you understand that this is the most used library for data mining. So it's important that you get to know the sort of functionality and the potential of this library. Now, there's a lot of examples. It's very, very well documented. Actually, if we go to a quick start guide, it will give you a lot of text to read through. Code examples that you can actually try in Jupyter. There's different data sets that you can already load. All these kinds of things you can already sort of start to work with. There's tutorials on different kind of things. There's a very, very large user guide that other than also sort of talking about the implementations that they have, also gives you a bunch of information on different algorithms, different models, all these kind of things, sort of modules for loading data, etc., etc. So it's very worthwhile to invest in this library. So that's why we chose to work with it this year. So the thing you'll have to do to complete this week's assignment is simply file. You can actually download it, and if you select download as Python notebook like this, it will give you the actual file to store in your computer. Now make sure that you sort of append your username before this, so your ANR. You can just drop in the name field right here, and after you've downloaded, you can hand it in under assignments, and then assignment week 1. This is the only thing you'll have to hand in to make sure that we know that you're up to speed.